Good evening, everybody. We can take the seats because we are about to start the session. Thank you all. I am Mark Aman, and I serve on AHOA's Education Committee. And each year, our team works hard to ensure that we are bringing you the education sessions that really matters and that can add some good knowledge in your portfolio, and which are delivered by, of course, AHOA peers and the industry experts. But we would need your help. How? We need to do it better and better every year. So when we get to the end of the session, there would be a slide with a QR code on it. So please take out your phone only when the session ends. And during that, please keep your phone on silent. In previous session, when I was making an announcement, somebody told me in the back, "Hey, if I don't answer my phone, my wife is mad." I said, if your wife is mad, you're already in trouble, so don't worry about it. So at the end of the session, when you'll have the slide, please scan the QR code and give us your feedback about the sessions that you want us to bring in for you, even in during the year and also in the next year's conference in New Orleans. Now, as I said, please put your phones on silent, and I would pass on the session to Shane Middleton. He is running a strategic partnerships for M3. An amazing moderator. And there we go. Shane, take over from here. Please welcome Shane.
Thank you very much. Welcome, everybody. Who's awake? All right, who's asleep? There's a couple of you. I see it. It's okay. Thank you for joining us today. Today's session is about chargeback champions. We all know that it's the pesky little thing, right? Chargebacks. They're here. We got to deal with them. They're not going away. So what's the best way to tackle the topic? What's the best way to handle them? What's the best way to fight those disputes and even prevent them? So before we jump into the meat of it, I'm going to let our panelists introduce themselves. So Aman.
Hey, everyone. My name is Aman. I'm the Vice President of Product at Canary Technologies. We produce guest management technologies as well as a Go paperless solution, which is credit card authorization forms and contracts. For those of you who have Wyndham hotels in your portfolio, we're the guest engagement system that's being rolled out currently, and are working with many of you on mobile check-in, check-out, messaging, upsells technology as well.
Hi again. This is Mark Aman. Somebody said, you also moderate, right? I said, yeah, I do that on a multiverse. But on this third earth, I run a hotel. That's Homewood Suites. I'm into hotel management for the last 15 years. And the idea to be here is to discuss how we exactly handle the chargeback-related problems from the hotel's perspective. So, yeah.
Hi, everyone. My name is Sangeeta Patel, and I'm CEO of 3S Hotels Group. We are a construction and design company as well as a management company on a separate portfolio of different hotels, different brands. I'm here from the owner's voice, so I am your voice here. So I hope I'm able to give you some tools when you end the session so you can take back and apply with the help of Aman for sure.
Perfect. My first question is going to be an easy one, and maybe more for Sunny. I think I said ahead of time I wasn't going to target anyone for questions, but what's really the struggle with chargebacks? What's the biggest pain points that you see today that hoteliers face when it comes to chargeback disputes?
So is anybody here from the AHOA committee or the education committee? Oh, okay. It's just Mark. One of the things I would have really liked to see even on our panel with Aman and Mark is a bank or a merchant with us, because one of our biggest hurdles today, especially if you start having those branded hotels, Hamptons, Hiltons, Marriott's, IG, Choice, they're tying owners' hands with the merchant agreements. So you're stuck with this merchant who's now not listening to the chargeback system. So all the work that Canary puts in, Certify puts in, all of these companies put in, our companies put in, our managers put in, that effort is wasted, because when you apply for that chargeback, it gets unseen. It's a pass-through portal. They send it to Visa and MasterCard. They reject it because their customer is always right. We're not their customer. We're just the people that pay them those commissions, right? And fees.
What's the biggest pain than losing money? So I think losing money from the hotel's perspective is the biggest challenge.
And I can just add, looking across the industry, this is a very pronounced problem. We obviously have a bird's eye view of a lot of different issues that hoteliers are facing. In our studies that we've seen, $2 to $5 billion of revenue are lost to chargebacks in hospitality every year, which accounts for 1 to 3% of revenue. So huge issue. I think any of you who operate a hotel know that firsthand. So the numbers kind of speak for themselves.
Yeah, and can you all elaborate on some of the most common scenarios that cause chargebacks at a large scale?
Everything starts when the guest makes a reservation. Now, people, I'll be very honest, open, brute. Everything starts when the guest makes the reservation. Now, is the reservation made in the right card or not? Now, when the guest walks in, that's what I tell people, because the problem is owners understand everything, GM understands everything, but when it comes to monitoring down the line what staff is doing, now that's the biggest challenge. Now, no matter how many techniques you are learning or using, if you are not monitoring the front desk, that's not happening. Okay? Any third-party company, whether it's Expedia, Priceline, Booking, you name it, there are many out there, mushroom companies. They would make reservation, they'll take their commission. The problem is if the guest is making the reservation in a fake card, the card is not in the name of the guest. So the moment the guest comes in, the front desk is like, hello, good evening. You have a reservation? Yeah, okay, what's the name? Fine, tuck, 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 everything is done. Would you like to use the same card on file? Yes, ma'am. What if it's the fake card? And the front desk is not paying attention, getting things done, because there are 2 more guests right behind the guest. So as soon as she said, all right, fine, that's okay, that's your key, and elevators are gonna be on the left, on the right. So there goes the money out, on the left, on the right, because that's where the chargeback is coming in. Bye, Felicia. You know. So what's exactly happening is you have to check. You have to tell the associate to check the ID. Is the ID same with the guest, even if the picture matching? Is this ID same? Is the card? You even needs to ask for the card. There is no problem in asking for the card. Can I say, can you show me your ID and card, credit card? If there is a resistance, a guest front desk needs to be little expert, can be trained for simply and sweetly asking to see the credit card. Even if it is a different card on file, the card name needs to match with the name on ID. If it says, oh, it's my mom's card, fine, mama's boy, mom cannot pay for you, you have to pay for yourself. Or there has to be some kind of an authorization form. If an employee comes in and they say, okay, my company has made the reservation for you, I always advise. At our hotel, we use Certify. So there are always many platforms out there. Technology is there. We just have to use it. But the chargebacks will always be there. Somebody once asked me, what is the most possibility when the chargeback occurs? Well, when it's a walking human alive makes a reservation, then there is a possibility. If it's a human is making reservation. So they need to check the card. They need to check the ID. Make your policies clear on the website. If it says pet fee, now there is a difference. A few people say pet deposit. People, deposit is something you may have to return. Call that a pet fee. So many people mention that on the website, pet deposit. Then the guest is asking, and that again depends. So if the guest is from Hood, you are done. You don't want to argue. You just want to call 911. So the thing is, you have to mention very clearly that it's a pet fee. Then if there is an extra guest, then there is a fee. Then if there is a separate breakfast, there would be a separate charge. And it has to be the same on brand website, on third-party website. If there is a cancellation fee, that also needs to be mentioned. So the policies needs to be clear. The card on file, that needs to be checked. Hilton and Marriott, I don't think they do anymore about the printing and signing the folio. But if you have a machine, now there are 2 types of credit card machines, and the technology partners can talk better about that. One is a swiping, and another one is a chip one. Go for the chip one, because that generates a code. My technology fellows will talk more about that. And then there is a least chance of a chargeback if the card was physically put in. You see, it's very hard from the PMS perspective for the hotelier, for the hotel associate, to just put click, 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 and done. But the card needs to be put into the system, not swipe, but in the system. And prefer if you get the machine on which a physical sign can also be done. That is saving you by miles for the chargeback. if you can also collect the ID, a lot of hoteliers are still collecting the copy of an ID. That's even better, because the more paperwork you have, the more paper trail you have, that's better for you. So these are some definite points on which a hotelier has to pay attention and make sure the team is also doing it. Because unless and until the GM, the owner, they are paying attention that the front desk is doing fine, that they are doing it right, it won't be corrected.
So I'm going to play the devil's advocate to that. So I'll just say to my management company's training, because I started off doing the front desk. That was my first job. I don't think my dad thought I could even run a hotel. So front desk and laundry was my job during nursing school. And when I became a front desk agent, didn't know anything about chargebacks, because really that's the manager's problem, right? So Wendy, who was my dad's manager, she ran all the chargebacks. Then comes a few years later and you become the manager, and now you see your first $1,200 out of the bank account, and guess who calls you? Corporate office. So some other Sally at dad's office is like, Sonny, one of your properties has $1,200 taken out of the bank account. So I came up with SOPs for our company. I think Aman was still probably in high school at that time. But very similar to what Certify does, a credit card auth phase with a front and back of the credit card. Absolutely, that's a necessity in this day and age. And with brands steering off the paperless check-ins, it's making it very hard for owners, because I am the kind of owner that if I say something, there's a saying in my company, it says Sunny's lane is the lane we stay in. So if there's training that's provided top down, all managers, regional managers, front desk managers, they all get that same memo. Of course, continuity in that training is important, like Mark said. But where I'll play the devil's advocate is we do all of that, and I had $7,000 of chargeback on one transaction, $9,000 on another one. So October was 7, November was 9, and it just recently has started. My question to Aman is, how is it different than, because I've kind of set up a very similar form system that you do. Yours is probably robust, mine's not. But we have our own software that we've created that sends out the requirement, hey, send me front and back of your credit card, signature, you writing the email personally saying, Sally Joe is ordering the room for Tom, Sally, and Adrian. It's all very specific. There's line items, and they do also sign off. Where are you helping? Where's your software triggering that safety point for owners like me? Because I just did your training last week, like the demo.
Yeah. Good question. So I think the way that we think about chargebacks at a high level is that there's two types. One is your malicious fraud, and the second is your friendly fraud. So malicious fraud is a criminal activity. Somebody has a stolen credit card, and they're trying to use that to pay for a room with someone else's financial information. And then our friendly fraud is somebody who came, stayed, it was their credit card, they're not claiming any outright fraud was performed, but then they're charging back for or they're disputing it for some reason. There was a service lapse that they claim, or a myriad reasons that you guys hear about all the time. How you address both of those is very different. So in the first one, I'll sort of lay out the framework that we think about on how to address all of this. There's a new framework that I thought of this morning to sort of categorize this that I haven't run by my marketing team yet, but they're in the audience, so we'll see if it works. So you guys tell me if this makes it very clear. It's perception, pre-processing, and then finally your paperless trail is sort of the way that I think about it. So when you think about perception, it is when someone has the intent of defrauding you, is there something that dissuades them from that, even trying? So when you think about it, if somebody wants to do a third-party booking and is trying to have a criminal action against you, and you send them a paper PDF or a paper form, they think they just hit the jackpot, because that's going to be the easiest thing for them to defraud you with. If they receive a digital form that has all of the trappings of something like what we provide, that makes it clear that it is PCI compliant, secure in how it's going to do this, it's going to run checks on your credit card, many people just move on to the next hotel and try to find a hotel that's going to send them a paper form. So you have to realize just the perception of security, of course behind that there is security, but just the perception of security is hugely impactful. Then we get to the pre-processing step. So they fill out all of this information, they submit the form. We'll do checks on this. We'll check if it's a stolen card. We'll confirm, we'll do an AVS check on the address. We'll make sure that there's all of these ID checks as well if you'd like to do advanced fraud checks where they take the picture and then we verify that the ID is accurate. At this stage, we're giving you a package of information that helps you decide whether you want to accept or reject this reservation before they have incurred any financial impact to your hotel. So that's the next step. More people will drop off there, right? They're not going to pass this for some reason. And then finally, you've got the paperless trail. I think that's very, very, very funny, but we'll see if nobody's laughed at the paperless trail concept yet. So the paper trail, of course, is historically the right term, where you have all the documentation related to what you need to do to respond to a dispute that's been submitted. A paperless trail is much more effective because when you think about it, if you have to come up with a paper trail, which is all these documents, as soon as you have to decide whether you want to dispute this or not, there's all this work. You have to pay an hourly employee to do this. There might be fees associated with submitting the dispute. There's months of time sometimes. So you're actually less likely to even go down the trail. And so what technology provides is a single button that says report dispute in the Canary platform, and it generates a PDF. That includes the location, the IP address when they submitted the payment information, the registration card that they signed digitally, the checkbox where it said, I agree to the smoking policy, and now they're saying that they didn't know there was one, the rate that they agreed to, all in a single PDF that is auto-generated. We use some AI techniques to make that very pre-packaged so that it's easy to submit directly to the credit card company. And now you're in a situation where combating a dispute is so much easier that in the event that these first two steps didn't dissuade them from going this far, you also have the best defense possible to put forward. So it's very important to think about the fact that having a digital authorization solution is powerful, but having a solution that includes that, contactless check-in, a tablet registration at the front desk so you can collect a digital signature, the whole suite is how you can defend this from sort of a 360-degree angle.
And so what if, I don't want to kind of take a step, I want to come back to that, but I want to take a little bit of a step back as well and talk about being able to predict when what your risk is for chargebacks. And so I know way back in my operator days, in some certain markets, we were able to determine what segments in certain markets what revenue segments gave us the most risk of chargebacks. And so, like, we had some tertiary markets that were big in sports teams, and we knew that the sports teams were great revenue, but it became very expensive revenue with the wrong groups and with the wrong processes because that's where our highest risk was. Do you see any trends there across the board?
From a hotel's perspective, directly from the operations, it's mostly the individuals walk into the hotel or make the reservations because there are least chances that a company, a corporate would reject or file for a chargeback. I mean, there are, unless they are not informed or the employee is not working with the company anymore. That's why, as Aman also mentioned, that there are tools available that if a company is authorizing for a stay, a hotel has to make sure that even if it is an employee coming in and saying that, okay, I've been staying all the time, what if now he is not working? So one has to make sure in that case, but mostly, even the sports team, I mean, there has been rarely anything that has been, unless a coach has decided to stay one night more and the college did not approve that. But mostly it's the individuals who come in as a walk-in or maybe making a pre-made reservation from third party, not even brand, but third party, sometimes brand too. But that's the most trend that for the chargebacks.
And I think to add to what Mark said, mostly it's people that are transient customers, especially if your hotels are downtown, concert venue, highway hotels, maybe not little town hotels, because when you're stuck in a highway and you're in the little town, you're going to pay because you need that room, right? So I don't see that at any of my remote hotels, but I see it in all my city hotels. It's always that grandma that called to book Joe, who's 18 years old, and he desperately needs, because this is the end of the world, and Joe's now traveling from Arizona to Oklahoma. So I've got to now force my manager to break rules and just give him a room. Well, that doesn't work. So we do the credit card authorization, and that's correct. That is where we get hit with liability, because 30 days later, grandma realizes, I'm just going to charge back. This is free money, if they had no intent of paying for the room. Where we're struggling is those rightful rooms where the construction worker comes in, stays 7 nights, 3 rooms, and then you incur that big hefty bill. How are we fighting that back? And I did, in the training with Canary, I did a 30-minute training. It was quick, it was very efficient, and I was very curious. Can you elaborate on the geolocation portion of it, which I think is great, because my manager team has become security people overnight when we got hit in October. Every hotel that's in Oklahoma, at least, they were sent out an email by our regional and said, you guys need to be on alert. This is happening even after us winning the last 2 years. Like, we have a competition between our managers who can win the most chargebacks. They don't lose. So when they lost, it was a big hit to their ego, their morale, right? And she had to come up with some creative ideas. Then Canary came into my email box, and I said, okay, guys, let's do this little demo. And we did this demo, and they talked about geolocation. That's the one piece I'm missing. I have security camera footage. We even send videos of the room that's been damaged. We train all of our director of housekeeping to come to that particular hotel and take the video from entry point, not in the room, from entry point. So it's time stamped on Apple or Android phone. So we have all of that, and we're still not winning, right? So what triggered my interest in Canary was, tell me more about your geolocation. How are we getting that narrowed down to that? And are you having any relationships or extended conversations with merchants to say, consider when hotels send you these chargebacks? One of my biggest frustration points as a CEO is when I see somebody I met yesterday, actually, a sidebar, said, oh, it's okay to write off $20,000 a hotel. No, it's not. It's not okay for me to write off $200. It's not okay for me to write off $10,000. It's not okay for me to write off $20,000. Even though we could probably afford to do that, right? It's not okay. So if you can help us collaborate and get us there, we would really like to hear your take on that.
Yeah, it's an interesting question. So the geolocation is based on IP address. And for those of you who might not be as familiar, an IP address basically identifies a specific device that has connected to the internet. And because every device is connected to the internet through some satellite or data cell tower, there's actually a way in that IP address to detect the location where that is happening. And so we have that digital footprint. Whenever there's a payment method that's being submitted, that geolocation is being tagged to it. When we have a registration card that is being submitted, that geolocation is being tagged to it. If you have a tablet registration product through us, all of that is adding to your sort of case that you might have in the event that this happens.
Yeah, and I want to go highlight something that you said, Sonny, that I think is a really neat aspect, and that is, how do you empower? We all know processes make the difference, right? Having a good process, having a good training, but how do you really empower your people at the property to really follow that? Because we obviously, there's always to incentivize sales, there's all these things to incentivize all these different aspects through benefits programs or bonus programs, but I find in chargebacks, usually it's the stick approach, right? And it's like, oh, if you get chargebacks, you're docked, right? But to empower them in a positive way, to prevent them on the front end and to win them proactively, I think is a really neat approach. And which kind of brings me to the next topic of financial, the way that we really treat our mindset behind chargebacks. And I think what we still see a lot of in the industry today is there are people that budget and forecast chargebacks. And now, I don't want to get off into a whole budget and forecast philosophy, because we could probably all go in rounds over that. But, forecast being a little more, you really want to show what's practically going to happen. But especially in budgets, you're setting an expectation for the year, and you're saying this is the mark of success for a year. And I know there's kind of that debate. They said, well, we need a budget for chargebacks because we know they're going to happen and this property gets X amount average. And the other side of that argument is, well, chargebacks are a problem, and so we shouldn't set that expectation. We should set an expectation of 0 chargebacks and 0 bad debt, And if you cross zero, if you have anything, then that's something that we obviously didn't do right to mitigate that part of the P&L. What are your thoughts on that?
Zero chargeback is not impossible and really tough. And as you said about the empowering, you have to train, empower. And then at the initial stages of empowerment, the GM has to stay alert that a front desk has to pick up the phone and make a phone call and say, hey, sir, ma'am, I have this issue, and I think we should not check them in. Boom, let them go. And the more they get trained, the more they needs to be empowered. Empowerment is mandatory for the front desk people because especially after like the GM or the manager is out 6 p.m., 7 p.m. till the next morning, that person at the front desk is the custodian of the whole hotel. So they needs to be empowered for sure. But how that empowerment would come? Train, have confidence and train. Secondly, every industry has a clause of bad debts. It's also like even accounting softwares give you like an option of having bad debts. But I would agree with you at one end, and as an owner, I mean, even she would say the same. There should be a goal for zero chargebacks, but there are some incidences anyway that will take place. But yeah, this is practically possible, and this is doable at some point.
I think it's interesting. The train line of thinking makes perfect sense, and we hear this from our customers all the time. But it's so challenging when you have all of these turnover issues, because then you train, and then they leave as soon as they're fully trained, and then you have a new person come in. So what we partner with our hotels on is obsessing over how to make the tool almost immune to needing training. So how do you make things so clear and intuitive that someone on day one knows what process you expect and that it's flexible to that? So a good example is if you go through the contactless check-in process with Canary, we were talking about how making sure that the name on the credit card and the ID match. In this contactless check-in process, you submit a picture of your ID, you submit credit card information, and then when the front desk agent is looking at the submission, when we can, we'll actually automate the check. We'll confirm that they match, and we'll give you a check mark, and you're good on that front. And if not, if there was some discrepancy or something that you might need to look in, there's a checkbox there that requires you to do that before you can submit this check-in as sort of ready for the next step or ready for arrival. So that is one of those ways that we're helping hoteliers say training is critical, not to say that training is important, but in the event you have these turnover issues, how do we help your employees as quickly as possible get up to speed and stay vigilant about all of these things you have to worry about when it comes to chargebacks?
He missed no chance to market Canary by any means.
Actually,
It's like train and retain. But you're right. Yeah, I mean, this would always be a challenge anyway. Yeah.
And tell us more about, I think somewhere in that training I heard about you guys authorizing the card for a small amount. Is that part of this chargeback system? I found that to be very intriguing because one of the things I have suggested to AHOA, just because I am an ambassador for the Midwest, and just locally we advocate for different legislature to help hoteliers, right? One of the things hoteliers are getting hit. In fact, one of the classes yesterday at the Calibri Labs was how do we change owners' focus instead of building brands and I want a Marriott and I want a Days Inn and I want a Red Roof. Why are we not saying I want a profitable hotel? Nobody talks about profit anymore. My parents, that's all they focused on. And we're all focused on how much bigger, better, prettier, newer hotels we have. Which brand do I not have in my portfolio? But if we start re-gearing our mind structure and talk about profit, then it comes to the point where, so one of the ideas I came up with my local group that comes up with new legislature is, how is it nobody chargebacks airlines? And if they do, it's very minimal. Why doesn't anybody say, once they put their credit, and it's all digitally put in, there's no swipe. How do they get a straight authorization and take the money and never get a decline? Because it's instant. It's like instant for that industry. How is it a hotel? I mean, the way hotel structure is in the United States, we cover 90% of small business, basically, whether you're a large hotel or a small hotel. How is it we don't have the power to federally change some of that trajectory so our authorizations are instant? You know, all has to do with brand. The reason I chose to be a panelist was because I want to be able to communicate to my fellow hoteliers, this is doable. I've worked in politics and I've seen the financial and back end of banks. it is possible. We're not getting that leg in that door. And with help from companies like Canary, maybe when we partner together and we can advocate together, I think we can get the merchants to back off a little bit. And see, merchants don't authorize, they don't check till 30 days when you get that chargeback, right? So owners are seeing this chargeback 15, 20 days, the guest is already gone. No fighting chance, no survival. So if somebody says you can't ever win a chargeback, there's a 2% chance you're going to always lose the fraud one. Once there's fraud, there's nothing the bank can do. Their hands are clean. We can't, and Canary can't. But there are ones that 98% or 80% that we want to still win because it's our money, right? And we need to partner with companies like that and see where can we benefit. What can we do to help him improve his company? What can we do to improve our process? Because we're very process driven at our hotels, at least we are. So it makes the training harder and yes, repetitive, and you must do it. It's a continuous process, it's a continuous learning process. But at the same time, how they do it, I'm so curious about the authorization process. I mean,
You have a discount code on the slide? No, mind.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's a good question. So I think the best practice that we've seen is actually at the time of check-in to just take payment, and that sort of gets around this whole process because then you're processing the payment the right way, and it really takes away a lot of the risk that you're worried about. The other thing that we can do in our authorizations product is do amount verification. So in addition to taking a picture of the ID, you'll have to log into your bank account, confirm a certain amount was posted by us, and then put that in order to submit the authorization. So now you've confirmed the ID, you've confirmed that the payment method is valid, and you've confirmed that the individual has access to the account where this payment will be posted and is able to type that in. So there's a lot of ways to go around this, and agreed, I think the key, the reason that we're here is because we don't work for the card companies. We work for all of you. And so when you have ideas, when you're curious about something, all of what I'm speaking about is product that's been built thanks to feedback from hoteliers, right? And so these are your ideas that we've just built technology around, and we're always open to suggestions or things we might want to try together.
And I would kind of want to bring this back because we've talked about brands and we've talked about merchant agreements. And then, Sunny, you brought in kind of really that third prong, I think that's important in today's landscape, and that is profitability and that mindset. And what we're actually hearing, that's been our goal for 30 years, is profitability and empowering hoteliers with the tools to do that. But what we're finally hearing, and brands have always been, at least in perception, have always been focused on top line. And now you do see the conversation changing, and we're having hoteliers and brands and key players in the industry start asking, okay, well, we don't just need to drive revenue, we need to drive profit. We need to figure out a way to make profitability the focus, because we can make all the money all day long, but if we're sending 70% of it back out the door, did we really accomplish anything? So I like the way that you added that in. We're getting close on time, so I do want to give some time for audience questions. So you have the experts up here on the stage. Does anybody have any questions? Yes.
So we did discuss about a couple of different types of chargeback. Mainly what we discussed, that customers stayed at the hotel and we got a chargeback. The topic that we did not discuss in this stage is there are a lot of no-shows. Those chargebacks are out of door. It's 90% of the time we don't read them. So again, that's a loss as well, because we have the room, but we didn't get paid. The other chargeback right now is a third-party chargeback from Expedia and Booking.com. Now, I'm not sure if you guys have seen this or not, but customer makes a booking from Expedia, they pay Expedia, then customer checks in, then right after they go to the room, they call to Expedia and cancel that reservation. Reservation gets canceled in the Partner Connect, but it does not hit our PMS because that room is already checked in. Now Expedia, regardless of the contract, we get the chargeback. And those are also out of door. So see if you guys have any input on that.
I can help you. Recently, that started happening. You're right. It's a recent trend. So obviously, crooked people find crooked ways of doing it. The best asset for you is, or at least my regional came up with this idea. If a lot of owners don't, especially when you have 2 or 3 hotels, you're not relenting that Expedia password to your staff. At all of our hotels, we give our extranet password and it's logged in. Now, I do understand my husband's a crazy psycho computer analyst, so he has so many back-end ways behind Opera that he locks everything down. And so we have a screen where he has got our extranet password saved. So all my staff has access. And you're right, as soon as they check in, they send that cancellation. The caveat is when they send that cancellation on your extranet, you must go and dispute it. It's instant. It's like, again, it's training, and sad that a $15 and $20 front desk agent has to do so much extra, but they're going to have to go on that portal and dispute it and say, nope, that person is already checked in, send an email. That is your protection. You will win all of those.
Yeah, but the extranet, it does come in extranet. Our front desk does come in access to extranet as well. But the cancellation happens in extranet. It does not get an alert anywhere to the front desk staff. And it's very rarely. Sometimes it does get email, but then those emails maybe goes to GM or somebody else.
That's right.
The front desk does not have even though they have an access of extranet, it does not hit the other side of it. It stays there.
So you're right. So I have given them the GM portal. I have given them the ownership portal where I pay my Expedia bills, where I pay the commissions, where I see the scores. You're right. If you select different people to get different emails, you're correct. They may not get it. But we got so tired of those useless cancellations. They're using your facilities. They're using your services. You deserve to get paid. So the best way we could combat that without involving the merchant, because the merchant's going to blame you. They're going to say, where was your manager? Who was on duty? Who didn't pick up the phone? Who didn't? And one of the other things I'll tell you as a token, if any third party ever calls your hotel, since there's a small group, I can share this openly, tell your staff never to give their name. That is the thing they're using in every chargeback, every cancellation. So they just have to say, no, we're not allowed to cancel this room, and you can hang up. That's a fair deal. And even on your extranet, as soon as that cancellation comes, respond with an email saying, no, we cannot cancel, past cancellation policy, or advance purchase card, or look up the type of reservation and then describe it.
Extending to that, should be night auditor's duty, and the same access that Sunny was talking about needs to be given to the night auditor. In fact, the whole front desk didn't matter. And the night auditor needs to go every night, whether it's Priceline, Booking.com, or Expedia, and then they have to, put the check mark that they stay, this particular guest stayed. And Expedia on a contract basis, it's written in the contract that if it is due between the window of a cancellation time, and especially coming to your question, like if Expedia is doing it with you, they are legally bound to call the hotel and talk. Are you waiving the cancellation charges or not? If they are not doing it, then you are still at the benefit. You can still get that money. Thirdly, extending to your question, the virtual card people. If somebody is staying for one night and the next morning the person is calling and saying, extend my stay, tell your staff to check them out, and there has to be a second reservation when it's a virtual card. If there is no reservation, then the person needs to be locked out, has to be left, or come down to the front desk before a certain time to make another reservation with their own card. And you can definitely give them a discount if you want to. I mean, it's up to you. But the virtual card reservations are required not to be extended. And again, if Expedia or Booking.com is doing it, either maybe the Expedia is calling and the front desk associate is not picking up the phone, or maybe putting them on hold. You never know what tricks they are coming up with and blaming Expedia at the end of the day and coming out clear-handed and innocent. So, but Expedia is required to, if it is during the cancellation time, they are required to call and ask you, are you waiving the charges, are you waiving the cancellation fee or not, which you are not. Yes, please.
So one has to do with you, that software, if you can make it dummy-proof for the staff, because you do have a lot of turnover in many hotels. You don't want to retrain the staff again and again. So make the software such that the EMV is done, registration's done, photo ID's done, kind of like a flow chart, right? One after another. Number two, third parties, OTAs, like he said. from what I know, I have a management company that does all that, but from what I know, from the top down, there's tons of chargebacks every single month. OTAs don't want to pay, no cancel, advance purchase, you name it, they don't want to pay that. They do a chargeback, thinking that you guys are stupid on how to respond because they send a 40-page legal document. You've seen it, I'm sure, right? So, if you can come up with a response to that, that would be brilliant. Because a person who has stayed at the hotel and you come up with those flow charts like this, that, and you can package that up as a response, that's easy. The third party where the card is not there, that's a problem. And that's where majority of the bookings are coming from in chargebacks.
Yeah, great points. On the first one, for those who might not have heard, essentially a request to have sort of a checklist that makes it very easy to see all the different steps. That's exactly how the product works. So happy to show you more on that, but you essentially have reg card, upsells, ID, payment. Those are the 4 steps. It is a linear checklist through the top. You see exactly what it looks like. So there's virtually no training needed to use the platform for that reason. And then when it comes to how we sort of help address chargebacks, so I think this is not news to anybody, but the most important thing is to try to prevent them before they even get to the point where there's a dispute submitted. And I think that's where a lot of the value comes. But then how do you tailor the report to the specific dispute needs? And what we do and what we're continuously developing is not just providing a set of data points, but actually using AI to start to tailor this to the specifics of the case. Because what we've seen with these new breakthroughs in generative AI is the ability to actually communicate more like a human. And so you can look at the fact that it's coming from an OTA, you can take in signals from what that legal document was, and you can actually use and package some of this language back to them. And so what we find is that is a much more effective way of responding to these disputes when they sort of come your way.
Of course, legal language, lingo. Like,
Correct.
we acknowledge that the guest is complaining about this.
Exactly.
In a professional manner, I get that.
Yeah.
But what about this? Did you know that they're double dipping Expedia, Priceline, and Booking? I'll give you an example. Again, this is what we found out. It's very interesting. It doesn't matter what franchise you have. Chargeback happens from Expedia, right? Then what they do is they take the money from the guest. It's in their pocket. They also debit your account. Think of $100, easy number. $100 from the guest, $100 from the hotel, $200 for nothing that ever happened. Did you know about that?
So how are they holding those funds? I mean, they legally have to, when they send chargebacks.
I'll explain.
Yeah.
My management company found out, and I had them investigate. Guest actually called the hotel and said, I lost the money. I didn't come. According to the paper trail, Expedia took the money from them. Right?
Yeah.
And they debited our account as well. They made double profit.
Do you know what basis they took your money? What was their reason for taking the money that the guest never showed up at the hotel?
Simple, just like you said before. Didn't show up, no show. And they didn't want to pay for it.
That's correct. That's why Expedia is under a huge lawsuit. I think, actually, if anybody has seen that lawsuit, and a lot of you guys probably got that email, a lot of owners overlook it. Do apply. It's a simple click thing. My assistant did it for me. And every hotel we have, they clicked on it, put the FEIN, your whatever your permit is for that LLC, and it will get you. Even if it sends you $200, who cares? It's the numbers that count. When we owners do that lawsuit file that comes through, and every now and then you'll get that file for it because Expedia is going through excruciating investigation right now upon that. But you're right. I've heard that where their contract to the customer on their website is once you click here, you're done. Your money's gone. There's no return, refund. There are certain types of rates that there is returns and refunds and all kinds of stuff.
And this is where, if you can do that for the OTAs, that's brilliant across the board for every single hotel owner and manager that's sitting there. Number two, you do know that if a chargeback happens, it touches the POS. For example, whatever, if you're a Choice, Marriott, IHG, doesn't matter. you pay royalty on it. You pay franchise fee on it, right? So what happens? You pay sales tax and income tax on it, on false revenue,
Yeah.
a revenue that never existed.
Actually, when you are losing $100 chargeback, you are not losing $100. You are paying your county tax,
State
you are
tax
paying the state tax, you are paying the income tax,
And the royalty.
you are paying the sales tax, and you are paying the franchise fee.
You are in too much pain, I can see that.
So basically, no, but this is a
On a lighter note.
serious matter.
No, no, no.
Across the board of all
Actually, this,
I know.
that.
Just
that
making
this
it
can
lighter.
be the class action suit to all the franchisors. So it's millions of dollars of amount is there.
I completely empathize with you.
We are
I,
talking about $100 from our pocket.
Right, no, it's
we are-
thousands.
We lost $140.
Right. I am so there with you, Uncle. You have no idea how much we ferociously, locally, in the city of Tulsa, where I am at, we fight. And one of the brilliant things my crazy husband did is, at the end of our first 5 years of our 3 hotels that we've started off with, he realized, oh my God, I have an IT degree. I know nothing about accounting, and I have a minor in accounting, but not like that. We realized we called the city official in who does all the accounting for the city, lodging, county, and all that. And he told us that if you do get these chargebacks or sales tax adjustments, do get them adjusted on your balance sheets. Get it adjusted on your P&Ls. Sadly, yes, you've already paid franchise. Yes, and franchise is not giving you a refund. I completely, that would be a different conference space, and I would love to come and help you there. Not on this platform, probably.
Actually, we have brought this point to the highest level.
Yeah.
But thing is this, if you go through any franchise agreement of IHG, Marriott, Choice, you see, they are supposed to take the franchise fee on what?
On gross revenue, yes, I
On
get
your
that.
sale.
Yeah.
But sell, and they also don't allow you, suppose you give credit, there is a corporation booking of 100 rooms in the hotel for this month, right? You give them the credit and money is coming after 2 months. According to franchise agreement, you are supposed to pay the franchise fee in the same month.
That's right.
Not when you get the money, correct? But that is okay. But when you don't get the money,
That's right.
how can you charge franchise fee on that?
There is a
How
solution
you
I
pay
can-
the sales tax and everything on the 40% extra you have to pay.
That's right.
There is a solution to that, which can, I mean, I'm not saying, whatever you are saying is valid, and whatever highest level you have taken it, I think that's why Hilton stopped coming to Ahua. Anyways, so there is a way of doing it, the way I've always done it back in past, that when there is a chargeback, and if I lost that chargeback, all I do is I go back to that reservation, I reverse the room fee, and that reverses, that reduces the revenue. I'm not saying that you should do it. What I'm saying is a lot of hoteliers have been doing it. That reduces your taxes revenue from the next month. So whatever you paid in past, that has kind of balanced it out. I'm not
Now
saying this
it-
is an ideal solution, and this discussion can keep going on and on.
Right.
I'm not sure if you have time or not, but.
One more, we have experience of this, what you are telling.
Sure, go ahead. Give us just a second, and we'll come back to you, Uncle. Yeah.
So I have a canary at my hotel, right? And every time I do authorization, I get authorization, everything passed, I got everything back. Even then, they do fraud.
Can you stand up, sir, so we can hear you, hon?
Even then, they do fraud check after that.
Fraud check or fraud decline?
Decline.
Your
basically.
card declines?
Yeah, the card declines, everything after that. So I don't know how we gonna fight for that.
Say that again, I'm so sorry, I
I'm
couldn't
sorry.
hear.
So
Yeah.
we have a canary, right?
Okay,
I give authorization to somebody saying that, can you authorize the card in order for you to use somebody else's name? So even then, they say, we didn't use the card at all, and they just come back saying,
so one of my $7,000 stays was 7 crew workers that literally I saw them checking in. So imagine I was driving by there trying to come and pick up bank at this new hotel we opened. And I saw those 7 men. 1 month later, my manager goes, remember those 7 men you saw? Same thing. Okay, I am, Exactly. And we have like video, right, of these people. I can send video footage. I think some of the missing parts, and I love this conversation's open. I think my first email to Aman and Mark was, I'm so proud that we're able to have open conversations about this. I think in future, people like Canary and Certify need to have owners on their committee or a feedback system where we can channel these energies. And like Uncle said, some of it is not being heard by franchise. I am so there with you, Uncle, from Days Inn to Howard Johnson to Hampton to IAG to Marriott. Sometimes we're getting shafted, and I completely agree. But vendors like these are trying to at least get us A-lined and get us in the right direction. We just all need to work together. It'll take time, it'll take effort, but if everybody speaks up like this is happening, it's really opening up pathways of how else can we make this a healthier existence for the owners, you know?
We have time, one more quick question, and then we've got to wrap it up.
Yeah, gentlemen and a lady. This is me right here, Janak. My question is to Aman. On an OTP-based transaction that shifts the liability from the merchant processing to the processor, am I correct? You're shaking your head.
Could you repeat the beginning of that?
On an OTP-based transaction, the liability for me as a merchant,
Yeah.
that shifts the liability from me to the processor. Am I correct?
Correct, yeah.
Okay, so that is an upcoming transaction trend coming in the retail industry. What is Canary planning to do in terms of OTP transaction, and it would eliminate all these uncles and my problem as well?
Yeah, so earlier when I was mentioning the best practice is taking payment at the time of check-in, this is the process through which we do that. So we process it as a true e-commerce transaction, similar to the retail use case that you mentioned. And we encourage hoteliers to partner with us on that as the initial implementation. Because then by the time the guest has arrived at your property, if they've gone through the pre-arrival registration process, they've actually paid already. So they arrive, and you've processed this in a way that is much more protected from a liability standpoint than a standard sort of process.
So I have a question for both of you and Aman. We used to do that back in the days, about 7 years ago. Then it became so costly for every hotel owner to do a charge, which is like 10% merchant fees, and the refund is costing you money. Most guests don't like their card charged before their stay ends. Am I correct? Right? So that's where the discrepancies, and I'm so sorry. I do not know that law or some new regulation is coming where the responsibility will be passed on, but I am for sure that no owner wants more merchant fees. We are dying right now. That's a whole new topic, a whole new agenda we need to have with AHOA, and we're here for this reason, because merchant fees are killing everybody, and then tying our hands down with a merchant is secondary to the disease. But when you say that, I would love so much. No owner in this room, I can convince them with a stroke of my hand to say from tomorrow, all of our hotels, we're going to take the money right as soon as the guest walks in. What we're worried about is that guest goes to the room and now he wants a refund. That refund's costing me the $140 instead of $100.
Yeah, it's a good question. I think to summarize a couple of these points, there isn't a silver bullet for these issues. I think we can all agree this is something that as an industry we're all trying to figure out how to improve together. What I think my thought process here is we are very open to trying a lot of different things, and at the end of the day, you guys are the business owners. You have to decide whether preventing fraud, preventing chargebacks, or some other aspect of your operations is the most important to you. And the reality is any path you choose isn't going to be perfect. You're going to be trading something else off. It could be more fees for less fraud. It could be more fraud for less fees. In some way, you're going to have a cost of running your business that is associated with this.
Well, thank you so much, Sunny, Mark, Aman. I think we all agree that this is a super important topic. There's a long road to go, but I think there's already solutions that we have in the marketplace and ways to attack it. Feel free to grab one of these panelists after this session, and also please take time. I mean, AHOA does listen. Take time to fill out the survey. Let them know if this subject matter is valuable to you and what things you would like to hear from us in the future. But thank you all very much for attending.